on the latest installment of Get to Know Your District. We're going to take a look at Grand Rapids, Michigan, located on the west side of the Great Lakes State. Grand Rapids is one of the few Midwestern cities with positive economic and population growth over the last decade or so. And in addition to a robust amateur soccer scene, the first professional soccer team and stadium was announced earlier in the month. And to give us some local insight, we're happy to be joined by founder and chief of the Soccer Rebellion, Mr. Michael Dublis. Welcome to Morning Kickaround, sir.
Hey, Robert, thank you, man. That was an awesome segue into this. I got mad excited with that announcement. That was so cool. And I'm glad I'm representing Grand Rapids with my Queens thing. I'm with my brother right now for the holidays.
Okay.
I tried to make it look like I was cool a little bit with the Godfather, but I'm originally from Queens, but Grand Rapids is home now. So, but
a Queens native, but you've been in your Grand Rapids. What do you call a Grand Rapidsite? What is a Grand Rapids local called?
Yeah, I think they call them Grand Rapidians, to be honest.
Oh, that's
so that all right. It rolls a little bit, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite. But it
sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie or something.
Yeah,
like Grand Rapidians are invading.
No doubt, man.
So we are going to invade the Rapidians territory for a moment here on the show. I kind of wanted to start off. What is soccer's place in the area? Is soccer emerging in Grand Rapids, or is it kind of already important to the city there?
So I grew up playing here. So let me kind of retract that. I grew up playing here. Came over here when I was young in the early 90s. And the soccer culture here was already somewhat ingrained. It seemed like a natural pathway for young athletes. It's what they did. So it was ASO back in the day, but there always seemed a connection to soccer. So a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I knew played soccer. So it was definitely around, and it wasn't this foreign sport. It was something that was super attainable. So I think that helps onto where it is now, because now it's extremely robust with 20 youth clubs, which is insane with the DMA that we have over here. Futsal is the next level in Grand Rapids with 2 or 3 professional teams. We've gone to nationals a handful of times. And then the culture itself of pickup it's just come such a far way. And to put things in perspective, with our takeover tour with Nike and Dick's Sporting Goods, we travel across the country, primarily the Midwest and the East Coast. We had our takeover tour finals in Grand Rapids this year, which was awesome to bring home. Out of the 16 teams, the 4 finalists were all from Grand Rapids. And so there's a futsal mix, but there's more of a raw approach. The problem with Grand Rapids still, and I think like most cities, is the pay-to-play models creates this segregation to where you have these handful of players that are fantastic that just couldn't afford to grow up in the system, couldn't make the travel work, whatever it might have been. But there's still this neighborhood concept that they have, that they grew up being able to play and had this more, unique approach to the game. But that's becoming more and more alive with what's going on with street ball here.
Yeah, Michael. Sorry, Rob, if I can just jump in, I want to ask, the idea of obviously street ball is something that I think is very romantic and it's attractive to a lot of soccer fans, particularly lots of soccer fans who didn't play as kids as much, or if we did play like I did, I played during the soccer boom of the 80s and, signed up for basically what was an AYSO team and whatever, had some fun, ended up quitting because I didn't feel that passion for it. It wasn't something I could connect with, whether through play or through seeing, watching on television. It just wasn't available to me. So with street ball, though, I think there's this idea like, oh, this is how the Brazilians get so good. Things like this are why there's this culture of technique among players. And as a fan who wants the U.S. to win a men's World Cup, we think, well, this is one of those missing links. Do you see that part? I mean, look, it's worth playing street ball just to have fun and play soccer. I'm not trying to make this only about making professional players, but I think culture is such an important part of how eventual players sort of are ready to be those kinds of guys.
Yeah, and Jason, I think it's crazy, man. I think us soccer players that played whenever we grew up 80s, 90s, we know this. We know that culture is missing. Like it never felt like it was American. It never felt like our stamp was on it. We didn't have the Derek Jeters, the Michael Jordans to look at and say, that's what I want to be. There was nothing to really assert ourselves and within the culture, and the way that everything's kind of driven in the United States is very pop culture driven. It's very much ingrained in, to who we are and how many movie quotes can we, raffle off. So, and not having that attached to soccer, I think we lose a little bit of our identity, or else we didn't feel our identity. And for street soccer, the way that I look at it, it's your way to be in the lab to make the game your own. And soccer is a game where you're definitely making your own decisions. And so you need that intuition, and you need that creativity, I think, more than most sports. And because America is so much coach, speed, X's and O's, tactical, you lose a little bit that translation when we're trying to joystick these players all the time. And a lot of that creativity, learning how to get out of tight spaces, that foot speed, there's a translation there that works in the 11v11 field that you see with the Brazilians. I mean, that's proof in the pudding right there, is what the Brazilians are able to do. But it doesn't, it's the same thing in Europe. France has it, England has it. But I think more than anything, it's stepping away from the coaches telling you how to play this game and treating the game as an empty canvas, because this game is more related to music in my mind than it is like American football. Like, there's so much more artistry and there's more individual thinking that goes on in this game. Unless you're Man City and everyone kind of plays like they're, Pep kind of joysticks a little bit, and the game's changing in that sense. But that creativity and that individual decision making gives you more confidence, allows you to roll around in the craft a little bit more. And I think that's exactly to your point, Jason. That is what's missing in our development. We seem a little bit timid. He still doesn't feel like we're grasping and taking the game and making it ours.
Your takeover tour, one of my favorite soccer events I've attended. I came to the one you had in Detroit a couple years ago.
Nice.
And you talked about music, and one of my favorite things is you had the DJ going. It was the small-sided games. You were kind of on the mic doing kind of an and one mixtape commentary.
Hey.
And so is that what I saw that you have a project where you're actually building your own facility? Is that are you going to kind of translate the tour and have that in-house, or what is your own facility going to do for soccer in Grand Rapids? So
the facility, the idea is really to kind of undercut how expensive it is to play indoor. And so it's a membership based. So for instance, it's $30 and you can play pickup whenever you'd like, but then it includes a gym. So a full gym with squat racks, bench press, and all the things that you would need, but it's all soccer specific. And then you have training pods. So basically like a cubicle where you can work on your touch, moving in certain spaces and smaller spaces. And then we'll have circuit training offers like you would at like an F45 or an Orange Theory. So it's just making it a little bit more accessible in the winter for players to come and train, but it will be up to the players kind of how they want to mold it. So it'll be open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. There'll be scheduled pickup games. And yes, our tournaments will be robust. It will be live stream. And then we have a DJ booth already that we're creating, so the DJs can come in and make it vibrant. But again, plugging in that American and that culture piece of having flavor, having sound, and to really kind of make it alive and make it feel like the players, this is your lifestyle. This is for you to create.
I also saw when I was scanning the Soccer Rebellion website that is there a new publicly accessible like street ball park there in downtown
Las Conchas? Yep. So we partnered with Downtown Grand Rapids Incorporated, and right in the heart of Grand Rapids, we opened Las Conchas, which translates to the courts. And we have 3 futsal courts, and this is where we play our street soccer league. We have 12 men's team, 12 women's teams in the summer for 6 weeks, and they're all sponsored by local organizations. So it's free, virtually free for the players. And then we customize jerseys with those local organizations. And then we have the live DJ, we MC, we have Modelo sponsoring. So we're selling beer. We have food trucks come out. So just like it brings a lot of flavor to the game and puts the game in a unique lens. But it's an awesome time.
Is that the same? You said you had the league and the events, but is that something that like kids can just walk up to and play?
Oh yeah,
day? Like,
yeah, it's free for everybody, for sure. Yep,
that's very very interesting. That's recent in the last couple of years or so.
That started in 2022 is when the courts opened. Yeah, so it's recent. It's grown quite a bit. So it started with 8 teams, and then we had 6 women's teams last year, and then so now we're at 24 teams, and so it's getting there. It's cool, man.
So, Michael, as a Grand Rapids soccer guy through and through, who has created a way for kids to interact with the game in your town, what do you make of the new outdoor men's team, the choice
Hmm.
that they made to go MLS Next Pro? Because I think it can be very easy to fall into this nerdy hole of talking about these different organizations, and there's a soccer wars mentality. But what really matters is that it connects with the community, right? No matter who's in charge or what league they're playing in. Is this a possibility? Does this work as an idea for Grand Rapids?
So okay. So I'm with you. I guess I'm too naive to understand why it's a bad thing to bring MLS, a pro team, period. If this were USL, if this were MLS, I get those are the two juggernauts. I didn't care either way. Having an 85 seat stadium, how privileged are we to have a soccer specific stadium, and what that means for our youth to have a vertical impact. And that's where my if is. Does this impact the community in the sense that now local players have more traction in getting into this network pool? And does it promote players maybe coming from outside Grand Rapids to want to grow and develop in Grand Rapids? I think those are the two things that a stadium and a pro team can do. As far as the community side of things, I was in Chicago at the Skyline pitch. So it's a rooftop pitch in Chicago. They had their Christmas party yesterday, and CJ Brown, I don't know if you're familiar with the name.
Yep.
So I was talking with him last night, and he's got a bunch of on the ground projects as well here in Chicago. And we're talking about, I was like, why, when the MLS, when they brought in Messi, when they brought in David Beckham, all these global stars, why wouldn't you use that to highlight the local kid? Why instead did you keep that clout? Like, why wouldn't you use that to say, hey, here's a poster of Messi and here's the local kid? Because that local kid, that's what's gonna be like, oh my God, that's my guy. Like, I grew up playing with that kid, or whatever it is. That's gonna draw more of the homegrown community fan base. So if we can stick to our roots and grow local talent and then see them play in front of 8,500 people, I think that's what's going to bring this community to a different level, and that's what's going to bring the game to a different level. But if you start transplanting people from Europe and all these things that really there's no connection to that community, I think it starts to hinder. And because no one, I'm sorry, at MLS Next Pro, MLS 2 even, that quality is nowhere near to the top notch of what we're used to seeing on TV. So people aren't going to the game for that quality. It's going to be more of an investment emotionally. And that's when I think you can rally behind that, when you know someone locally that's getting a chance to play and then they're starting to shine. I think that's the way you got to drive the community, but it's up to the community. Because initially when it came, I was so surprised to see the feedback of the turmoil, because I think with GRFC that was here, USL 2 back in the day, and they had a great following. They had like 5,000 to 7,000 people that were here, but that fell off. And I think people are still a little bit hurt by that. And to have Van Andel and DeVos bring this in, there was kind of a mixed emotion. I never understood it. So right now we're still trying to address, like, hey, if we want this to work, us coaches, us players, we want professional soccer here and want to take this to whatever level we can take it. It's really up to the fan base and the community to rally behind what's going on and give it that lift that it needs.
That kind of leads me into my next question. You said, the Van Andels and the DeVosses just announced an 8,500 person brand new soccer stadium right on the river there by downtown Grand Rapids. Do you think that there is an audience already there for that?
Yes.
Or is that something that's going to have to grow?
It's there. But you got to be careful. Soccer is not a copy and paste generic sport. So you can't go to some sports agency and say, hey, we want this, and they're going to copy and paste what they do for basketball, what they're going to do for football. Like, you got to be so sorry. You got to be so that's my alarm for something. That's Boondock Saints, if you were wondering. So you've got to be so conscious of the different cultures that are ingrained with this game. And so it's like you're representing a neighborhood with all these different houses. And so you got to be super conscious of how you connect with those culture. You have to individualize, you have to speak to them, and you have to invite everyone there, then show them that they're welcome and that there's a pathway as well for each culture to be represented. So if you can connect with the community that way, and you got to be able to listen and not just, say this is how it is. Yes, it's ready for it. but it's not an easy process. You see it in the MLS now. You have teams that know how to do it, and then you have teams that don't know how to do it across the MLS. And with our tour, we toured with the MLS. We went to Columbus, we went to DC, we went to Charlotte, we went to Chicago. Chicago is a mess. Chicago should be much more vibrant than what it is. And CJ would say the same thing. Columbus knows what they're doing. The Columbus has it down. But again, you're in comparison with how Columbus is doing it because there's not another pro team. Mm-hmm. Like there's not even you have the hockey team, whatever that is, not a hockey guy. Charlotte surprisingly was very good, but I think they grew theirs through the USL and then it became pro. So there's a little bit more of a foundation there. So there's a lot of questions, and I know when talking to Dan DeVos, he's aware that this is a different animal. But now it's the people that if you get the people that are just looking at numbers and figures and don't have the raw passion for the game, this thing's going to go off the rails really quickly. And people are going to see right through it. Like if you bring in a superstar here for the team and he's like, hey, come to Grand Rapids, like that's going to look corny. It's going to look cheesy. But if you have a local kid there that you can see heart and you can see like what this means to him, I think that speaks much more volume. So I hope they do this the right way and connect with the city.
Are you pretty confident in the talent pool there in Grand Rapids that they can play a part in the team that's coming in a couple of years?
100%. 100%. I think Michigan in general is a hidden gem, and I don't know why. Because it's not like our terrain is set up for it, but we are.
We got weather issues too.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about Michigan and our soccer pool? Like from what you see, because you guys see a lot. Like, so when I grew up playing, remember when ODP was super relevant? You remember? Yeah. So it was the West pool and it was the East pool, and the East pool would always kick our butt. Like they would always just. But now I feel like has that shifted, or is it still the East side's better, or do you think that just it's spread out now and it's a little bit more funneled?
I definitely think that the small ball has definitely taken off. I've commentated on a couple different arena games out there, and the local talent seems very exciting. And then tournaments that you put together, and there's been a couple other tournaments where Grand Rapids teams have shown out very well. And then you talked about the Grand Rapids FC Day in the NPSL. They had local contributors there too, and so it seems like there is talent there. Whether that translates to the professional level, I guess the future we'll see. I love your confidence in it, and I'm not sure, Jason. From your perspective, you're not as kind of like locally biased. Do you have any take on this?
No, I mean, as somebody who doesn't know Grand Rapids intimately, as somebody who, has a national view and has been covering professional soccer for a decade and a half, what I'd say is, but also who is someone who has been talking about, smaller communities as important to the growth of soccer in America. I mean, I talk about filling the map up, and I mean that with pro teams, but I also just mean that with relevant efforts to connect the community to the game in ways that will then be able to be passed down through generations. What matters, if we want to be the best possible soccer nation we can be, we need dads to take kids to soccer things, and then those kids to grow up and take their kids to soccer things. I mean, that's what my dad did with me with baseball and football. The reason I root for the football team I do is because my grandfather put me on his knee and said, this matters. Right. So I want that to be the way we talk about soccer in this country. It's not just a lark. It's not just a thing to go spend your discretionary income. It's not just a night out. It's not go to see the fire. I mean, you can do those things. Take your kids out. Do what I have kids. I know how hard it is to entertain them. Entertain them any way you can. But I hope that we get to that point where it's our culture of soccer permeates every part of American life. And maybe that's an impossible task with the way the internet has changed the world, but let's keep trying. I appreciate Michael trying, because it matters that people are out there trying.
That's your snippet right there. Because Jason, I couldn't agree with that more. And I do think it's possible. And I think like Columbus is close to doing this. And if you haven't gone to a Columbus game, and what it is you want that kid from Grand Rapids to grow up saying, I want to be that guy. And like to your point, like as a New Yorker, I never had a choice on what team. Like it was something that was hooked in me, that's still hooked in me, that I never going to go away. Like these are my teams, and it's tribal. And once you become like, once it makes you make it like that, And I think, like you're saying, it's up to like the parents. Like, yeah, I'm a dad now. It's up to me to showcase how much this means, and then having that kid want to be that. So, yeah, 100%, man. I think it's. I mean, and like Jason, you've seen it, like the rise of soccer, like coming from the '80s to now. Like, we didn't have anything like that back in the '90s. Nothing to what we have now. I feel spoiled. Like, I remember when the MLS first came out and the MLS shootout, how awesome that was. Like, that was different, and they had these empty stadiums and where they were playing.
Yeah.
And now having like Grand Rapids is small and I have a professional stadium here.
Yeah.
Like it's getting there, but it just seems like sometimes it still feels like it's corporate and we're just throwing things.
Well, that's the thing. And I look, I know like you have partners because you need partners to take your message and take your tour. But I appreciate that there are people, trying to do things from the grassroots perspective, or certainly ground up. You mentioned CJ Brown in Chicago, because we have for a long time been fighting this, and it's definitely different now through the work of people like Michael and everything else. But for a long time, it was like soccer is the least cool sport on the planet.
Yes.
Nobody wants to engage with soccer because soccer's corny and weird and it's a bunch of it's a bunch of white kids running around in the suburbs on the weekends. And no, soccer is clearly not that globally, and it doesn't have to be that here.
No.
And we are I appreciate that work too. That's a big part of this. You can't corporately force people to think of soccer as cool.
100%. And this is, I don't know what my brain's going here. Why do we have the worst chance when we have the best pop music? Like, why aren't we reciting like Michael Jackson and like 50 Cent? Like, our chance could be the best. Like, we could have we have the best music, but yet we're doing some corny things because the craft beer drinkers came up with whatever.
Well, yeah, this is that's a whole show, Michael. You should come back. You should come back and we'll do a whole show on this. We'll do a special bonus episode with Michael on this stuff. Because you and I could go back and I'm sure Rob could involve himself too. We could go back and forth on this for a long time. Hopefully we're getting there. I think obviously you have to start somewhere. It was crawling, toddling around, and now maybe we're starting to get our pace up on all that stuff.
Have you seen there was an interview with Davies, and he went up against Thierry Henry. I forget what show that they have. And he was talking about how in America, like you got to understand, like we had something going in the 50s and then we took a hiatus. And then we restarted again in the 90s. And he's saying what Europe doesn't do is give us the credit that we're still in the process.
Sure.
And then Henry's like, why would I give you credit? You haven't shown me anything yet. And that was kind of Henry's take. But I thought Davies was correct. I think, and to your point, I think like we are definitely seeing progress. And are we just getting too antsy to get to that end product that is inevitable? Like that.
We're not patient people. We are not patient people.
Yeah. Sometimes we want to fast forward to the end product, and without realizing we're in the pinwheel stage. We are currently loading the end product of soccer that futures ourselves want to have. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us about Grand Rapids Soccer on Get to Know Your District. Let the folks know kind of how to look into what you're doing there in Grand Rapids.
So if you want to look us up on Instagram, that's kind of where we have a lot of our creative content at the Soccer Rebellion. You can also find us on YouTube at the Soccer Rebellion to see our highlight videos. And then our website, thesoccerrebellion.com. And then we also have our facility, if you're interested and you're in the Grand Rapids area to see what that's all about. That's undergroundgr.com. But Jason, and just thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael Dublis.
Robert, sorry, I got the name for a second. You let me hang there, Robert. I thank you. You should have just cut me off with Robert. I appreciate you letting me hang there.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Michael, thank you so much for joining us and helping us get to know the district of Grand Rapids.
There we go.
All right, we are on the fight to 500 subscribers. If you haven't already, go to Morning Kickaround at YouTube. Click the subscribe button. Help us hit our first big goal of 500 subscribers by the end of the year. We got, 48 hours left, Jason? Be sure to hit subscribe on Morning Kickaround on YouTube. Follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and blue sky.